Anyway. Okay, here's
Good evening, everybody, and thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Taylor, and I'm the Assistant Event Coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers here in Saskatoon. This event is being held on Treaty 6 territory, which is the land of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and homeland of the Métis Nation. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of She's a Lamb by Meredith Hambrock, published by ECW Press. Our special guest host for the evening is Jenny Ryan. Thank you to both Meredith and Jenny for being here tonight and helping us make this event happen. Just to note that this event is being live streamed, so please be aware of the webcam to your right. I'd also like to take this time to encourage you to silence your phones for the duration of the event. If you would like to buy copies of She's a Lamb, we have some up here at the signing table as well as by the desk where you first walked in. You're welcome to get your book signed before you purchase it. Just please remember to stop by the cash desk on your way out. And our host for the evening, Jenny Ryan, is a comedian, improviser, tap dancer, and an award-winning librarian. She's an avid reader, a reluctant camper, and a pretty decent friend who also happens to be really, really good at parallel parking. Our author, Meredith Hambrock's debut novel, Other People's Secrets, was called Audacious and Fabulous by the New York Times. She has been a finalist for the CBC Short Story Prize and worked extensively in television, most recently in the writer's room for the Canadian Screen Award-winning sitcom Corner Gas Animated. She lives in Saskatoon. Hello, oh my gosh. This is like everyone I know in Saskatoon. I'm so happy you're here. Jenny, with the brag about the parallel parking, come on. Yeah, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm gonna read just a chapter from here. And then we're gonna chat. And yeah, happy to sign books and yeah, happy that you're here. The morning of our first rehearsal arrives, and I'm slumped outside the junky rehearsal studios attached to the company's offices on Granville Island. I wish I smoked. Instead, I've got my peppermint roll-on stuffed up my nose. I'm breathing so deeply, desperate to relax. I'm about to burn my throat. The cast list was attached to the email telling me to come to the session, and of course, Samantha got Maria. Because she has a vlog. Because she was willing to go on the internet and beg. I didn't bother scanning the list after I saw that. I just slammed my laptop and had a glass of wine. I hear giggling and see a tiny girl skipping toward the theater, her dad jogging next to her. She stops and hops into a puddle with both feet. Julie, come on, her dad says, reaching down and swiping at the dirty gray water splattered on his khakis. We're going to be late. He pulls her along as she laughs, and I want to throw up. She's tiny. And I'm going to be the one who makes sure she doesn't like choke on a grape or something. I hate this already. Jessamyn? Oh no, it's Rudy. He's locking up his bike at the rack across the alley. Must have ridden up while I was spiraling about that child. What are you doing here? I say it as neat as I can, hoping he'll take the hint. We're at the company's second stage, a seaside black box that's now a rehearsal space. Financial troubles push the smaller, weirder shows on which this company built its reputation to the wayside. Not that I mind. The artsy crowds are always a pain in the ass. They like to loiter and discuss after the show, really take things in, and they always have something to complain about. He ignores my slight. Why are you skulking in that doorway? I'm not skulking. What's the thing you're stuffing up your nose? He asks, vaguely concerned, like maybe I have a drug problem or something. I can tell he's been thinking about me, telling himself stories about who I am, stories where I'm attainable, available, attracted to snotty, pretentious bartenders. It's peppermint. Right. Can you buzz off? I wince at how pathetic it sounds. Now is not the time. Okay. He turns toward the stage door. That's the stage door, I say. I know, he says, pulling it. And it might be some surprised rage, but I launch out of the alcove after him, not quite computing what he's saying. Why do you know where the stage door is? I'm in the show. They were short on Nazis. You're in the show? I repeat, slowly putting it together. You went out for a musical? Wait, you're an actor? Rudy wiggles his eyebrows at me, and I realize I don't know much about him, other than his love of real art or whatever, and the fact that he just moved here a few months ago. I'm an actor, he says, and has the decency to sound at least a little bit ashamed. And you got cast in this show. Yeah, I needed the money. My stomach sinks. You're not Captain Von Trapp. He laughs. No. Chorus, Nazi, dinner guest. I think they might even see how I look in a habit, though I do not want to shave. Oh, come on, I basically scream. To God or whoever it is that's spending all of their time chuckling while they twist the thumbscrews on my dignity. Wait, are you in this? He asks. No, I say, following him down the hall. They hired me to be an acting coach for the kids. Rudy dares to laugh at my humiliation. I think you mean babysitter. Damn, I double down. Acting coach. It's a babysitting job, he says. Don't lie to yourself. I'm not lying. I had a meeting, he cuts me off. We both know Michelle's too nice to say it. The kids need a babysitter to get them through hair and makeup, help them remember their lines. My ex did this for a run of Billy Elliot. It's a babysitting job. I feel like an idiot, and I really regret going out for drinks the other night. Because once you let someone in on what's going on with you, you become attainable to them, become a part of their world, instead of on your own little island where you get to make the rules, control the narrative. I just think you should be honest with yourself about what you're in for. Oh, F off, why don't you? I say, then hear a gasp, and spot another shrimpy kid, this one a boy, sitting on a bench alone, a comic book on his lap. Get used to it. I roll my eyes at him and head inside. Rudy disappears, and I'm grateful. I don't want to be seen walking in with a bartender. He's tall, I reason. That's probably why he got cast. Tall men are good in theater. You can create great tableaus with them. Nice images, levels. And if you're a man working in regional theater, you only have to be able to do one thing. Sing, act, or dance. Usually it's sing. And then you just get to sway in the background while smiling women leap around you. Totally sexist. So disgusting. The world needs to change. Inside, the rehearsal hall is bubbling over with conversation. It's packed. There's so many people, and you can tell who the actors are. They're the prettier and shinier ones in the corner. A group of greaseballs stand clumped. I'm guessing they're the band. Some nerdy girls at the front hover next to a thick tree trunk of a woman wearing glasses who definitely has the posture of a stage manager, a gigantic binder tucked under her arm, a weariness to her that I can only tell is going to get worse. Michelle's talking to her rapidly and waving her hands over her head. And then I spot the kids. They're clustered together off to the side. Their parents are waiting for them, still wearing coats, clearly unsure as to what they should be doing. The boy with the comic book hurries in and sits down a few feet away from them and goes back to reading. I suppose I should go over and introduce myself. A girl from the Shakespeare Festival, a reedy soprano with the purest horse girl energy, someone I cannot believe has been cast, waves me over, smiles at me through her big teeth. Jessamyn, hi, can you believe it? I'm here. Sorry, do we know each other? I ask, because it's always best to be the one who's forgotten the other person's name. A little trick I've developed over time that helps me maintain my edge. Oh my God, Jessamyn, I know I lost like 27 pounds. It's me, Kathy, remember? From Shakespeare on the Lake? Remember we did that hilarious movement class together? I used to not be able to hold my crab walk, but now I'm a part-time Pilates instructor. All right, hey. And now I'm not sure I remember who this is at all. It's the strange thing about that summer, everything crowds together in my brain. I unfollowed them all on social. It's not a good idea to be around other people constantly projecting their needs and successes onto me. I just want to focus on me, on what I'm doing. But sometimes I wish I had a better memory for this kind of thing. Isn't this like so exciting? I can tell she thinks I'm going to be in the chorus alongside her. I'm so glad I lost some weight. Like I get called in so much more often now. My life has totally changed. I smile and nod. I saw you talking to that guy, she says, nodding at Rudy, who's sitting in the corner with the binder in his lap. He's cute. Is that your boyfriend? Kathy starts to become clearer in my mind. A sort of strange fangirl always off to the side, observing. Her enthusiasm so palpable, I feel bad for her. Always excited about what's to come, endlessly optimistic about the future. That kind of energy is not sustainable. No, I can't stand him, I say. Oh my God, what happened? Nothing dramatic. I do remember her now, such a sap. He's just annoying and maybe a little obsessed with me. Kathy rolls her eyes a little as if to signal she understands what it's like to be constantly fending off men. I'm so glad you're here, she says, putting a hand on my shoulder and tilting her head to one side. It's great to see that you're still in theater. And so crazy to be reunited like this. We should go for drinks. So she can brag about being in the chorus while I'm shunted off to the crew? No thanks. I smile at her, give her a chirpy, yeah, totally, then pretend to be looking for the kids. She'll find out I'm not in the show eventually, and I don't want to be in her vicinity when she does. Are we going to do a get-to-know-you game? One of the brats asked. No. I have perfect pitch. Another barks in my ear. You're right. I need to go to the bathroom. How is that my problem? We're only 45 minutes into rehearsal, and I'm tempted to walk off the roof and throw myself into the sea. They've shunted me off to a side studio with streaky windows, and now the kids are sitting on some aging gym mats staring at me. Half an hour after we were supposed to start, Michelle stepped into the middle of the room, frazzled as ever, her glasses fogged, sitting on the end of her nose. She waved her arms until everyone quieted down. Sorry, she said. My teacher used to clap loudly, and I hated it. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for waiting. She then proceeded to introduce the creative team, music director, conductor, the stage management team, and the assistant directors. I was forced to raise my hand and smile graciously and wave when she introduced me as assistant director, kids department. Vomit. Captain Von Trapp wasn't there, was coming in hot off a cruise ship contract at the end of the week. A cruise ship, and not even a good route. Alaska, what the heck. That Kathy girl I allegedly know from Shakespeare on the Lake seemed impressed and excited that he was rolling in on a ship, was bowled over by the fact he'd basically been singing karaoke on the high seas for the last 6 months. Big whoop, as if I'd ever take a cruise ship contract. I only do the auditions for practice. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
I don't know if is it on now? This is a mystery. Oh, there it is. Hello. Well, Meredith and I are gonna have a chat now. I suppose people will can ask questions,
Yes.
but we're gonna have a little chat.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna play a little game and then we can ask some questions. So, we have until now. Question for you. You said we have an hour. Does that include the book signing?
No.
No, okay. So we have about 50 minutes to fill.
Okay.
Can we do it?
We can end early.
What?
No one's ever been mad. Just to go home early.
Okay. Well, I have so I've read the book. I finished the book. Hooray for me. I have 2 children and a full-time job, so it's tough to finish a book, but I did it.
Woohoo!
And I have to say I was a little nervous. Meredith asked me to do this. And then I was like, what if it's terrible? What if I don't like it? What if it's not my jam?
You already said yes.
But I'd already said yes. But then I came to this line and I knew it's on page 9. Women know how to keep this kind of agony private. Men always make their feelings other people's problems. And I was like, perfect. I'm gonna love it. And I did.
I've never gone through a breakup.
Never. Never. Anyway, so I was delighted that I was reassured it was going to be good on page 9, and then I continued to get better from there. So thank you. This will entirely be an honest conversation where everything nice I say is true.
I love that.
Okay, so I have questions, and my first question: the book is called "She's a Lamb."
Yes.
With an exclamation point. Please explain the title.
People don't like the exclamation point. I got the grammar folks. They like to leave it off to be passive aggressive.
No, I love the exclamation point. I just don't understand what it is referencing.
Sure. So there's a song. So the I feel like I maybe should have explained this before my reading, but the book takes place during a production of The Sound of Music, a musical production. It takes place at a regional theater. And there's a song in The Sound of Music called, I think it's just called Maria, but we probably all know it as How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria, is the chorus. And I watched The Sound of Music, the musical, about 37 times once when I was working in regional theater, and the song was constantly in my head. And there's a line in the musical that's, she's a darling, she's a demon, she's a lamb. And it's when the nuns are all sort of debating whether or not they're going to kick Maria out of the nunnery and send her into be an indentured slave. And so to a bunch of children. And so I also thought it was a little ridiculous that you would think somebody who just sort of likes to hang out and sing and go for hikes and stuff, she's not a demon, maybe she likes a prank once in a while, but she wasn't a terrible person.
I see.
And so it's a sort of ironic reference to that, because perhaps the narrator of this book maybe is a demon.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought maybe she was going to end up in the Lonely Goat Herd piece. Songs. I was waiting for her to have to suddenly don a lamb costume, but no.
I think that's her, that's going to be her purgatory, perhaps.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, that's question number 1, ticked off. Okay, so you mentioned background in theater. So
Yes.
how many people have read this book? Put up your hand. Okay, so for the rest of you, as Meredith said, the story does take place in and around a regional theater. Now, for those of us who are unfamiliar, what makes regional theater different from, like, what is regional theater, Meredith?
God, I didn't prepare for this. I think it's a theater that serves its region. I
Okay,
think I would say. And it's the one that I worked out at anyway. It was a subscription house, and so it's I think a lot like Persephone in that way. Folks go there where the theater sort of exists to serve its audience, I guess.
so it's
And
not like
it's small time.
it's not, but it's not community theater.
No, it's not community theater. The actors are paid. They're paid, some sort of union rate that I looked it up once and I was like, is this monthly? How do you live off that? So it's not a lot of money, but you're considered a professional performer.
So you worked at a regional theater. What
did.
did you do there?
I was an usher, and I took this job. I had written for some kids' TV shows, but it was not a love match. Those jobs.
Because you hate children.
Yeah. No, I don't hate children. I just never talked to them. And yeah, it just wasn't a love match. It wasn't my dream. I was in my 20s. I was like, I'm such a good writer. I just need to find the right thing for me. And needed a day job really badly. And a friend of mine worked there, and it's a union job. If you are an usher, it's unionized. They can't fire you if your shirt's untucked. That kind of thing was great. And so I took this job that allowed me a lot of writing time. And it was one of a couple of sort of part-time jobs that I juggled. But it was really fun because you get to watch the shows over and over again, but it's also terrible because you get to watch the shows over and over again. So you watch musicals, like I watched Billy Elliot probably 40 times. I watched Sound of Music probably 40 times. I watched Angels in America like 40 times, which was a tough month. That was hard.
Yeah.
But I made a lot of money.
And was this in British Columbia?
This was in Vancouver. Yeah,
Vancouver.
this is in the city of Vancouver. So it's called the Arts Club Theatre Company, and I hope they're not mad at me.
Okay. So, but you were never a performer.
No,
Did you have aspirations for performance?
no.
Okay.
Well, I did improv in high school, but I think everybody does,
right.
and I did like a couple high school plays, but not,
So your similarities with Jessamyn, the character. So she works as an usher, but really is a performer at heart.
Yes.
And so you were an usher at heart.
I was a writer.
Writer.
I was a writer. Yeah, I was a writer at heart.
Right.
But I've been around a lot of actors, and I found it to be, I was like, it's so hard to be a writer and get rejected all the time and have people, think you're not talented and think you're not smart. But I was like, to be an actor, it's like somebody's telling you you're not like good looking enough. You're not, your voice is ugly.
Yeah,
It's
some of it is
really
things you
bad.
can't control.
Yeah. And when I worked on some of the TV shows, I was like the assistant who put the DVD in the TV for all the people who would sit there and cast these shows. And the way they talked about these people was so awful. Like, it was so hard. And I think part of it is like for them to continue on in show business, they can't be precious about things. But for somebody who has like, me being like kind of a gushy, nice person, quote unquote, it was really hard listening to them talk about actors this way. And so I was like, this must just drive you nuts.
Yeah.
It just must be so hard. And that's what I brought to this. I was like, I can share in this woman's frustration of not having achieved the things that she wants to achieve. People aren't seeing her the way that she sees herself. But I think there's this extra layer of like having to deal with the sort of physical nature of just being an actor and constantly getting rejected for, what your face looks like.
Now the character, the protagonist, is not particularly likable. I'm not giving anything away. She's a difficult person. And in the writing of this book, did you get feedback or push towards making her more palatable, a nicer person?
Yes, well, that's my problem is that I'm very fascinated by people who are unlikable because I think I'm very likable. And this is just something that I don't relate to at all. And like, what is it like to be a really difficult or challenging person? I feel like I have these people-pleasing tendencies, and I'm really drawn to people who make mistakes. And also,
That's why we're friends.
oh yeah, totally. Exactly. But it's just fascinating to me to get in the head of somebody who is like totally different from me and kind of rummage around in there. And part of the problem when this book got rejected a healthy number of times from different publishers, and something people said was, I don't know if I'm supposed to hate her or I'm supposed to love her, and that's why we can't publish this book. And I was like, oh, but come on. Can't we just be interested in
Is there a version out there where she is more redeemed?
No, it was a lot worse. My editor, the original version of it, my version of it was a lot more unlikable. And I worked with this really fantastic editor at ECW Press named Pia Singal, who was like so cool and like young and hip and interesting and smart. And she worked with me to at least make her more, easier to empathize with and understand. And I think that that's what a lot of readers have been connecting with.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of nice feedback about this book so far, and it's about people, oh, I finally can enjoy a book about an unlikable character because I can understand it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you definitely make her, one understands and empathizes, which is more important than liking someone, I think.
Yeah, well, and on the topic of, I just like when writing about women kind of expands the definition of what a woman can be, and I think that that's interesting to me, and that's a little bit of my political manifesto, I guess.
Excellent. When did you start writing this?
Oh gosh, I started writing this in 2019 before the world kind of exploded. And yeah, I was working as an usher. I think a little over, I think I turned 30 the year before. Was very frustrated. I had a book. My first book's called Other People's Secrets. It was going on submission, which means editors read it and consider it for publication. And it was doing badly. Like really, really badly, like the editors weren't even reading it badly. And it eventually found a publisher, and it's been really great for me, that book. I was very, very angry, and I had a bit of debt, and I was like bartending at this curling club, and I was really mad, and I was also ushering and doing other things. And yeah, so I started writing this. Families, kids, it's always a tough time to project that will cheer me up, and then something very different from a romantic comedy kind of emerged, but I just went with it.
And did you have to do much research for this?
A bit. I had been working like in and around this theater for about 5 years, and I knew some actors. And so I didn't do a ton. I kind of pick up stuff by osmosis, so I didn't do a ton of research. But it was great. I was grateful for my editor because she went to theater school, so she sort of knew a little bit more. I had a section about theater school in this originally, and she was like, these people are way too nice. You have to make them more brutal because theater school is brutal. They really try and shake people loose in theater school, which is something I didn't know. So she helped me out a bit there, and then I did a little bit of reading about the sound of music, but honestly, I just had seen it so many times. I can do it right now if you guys want.
I went to university in Ontario. I went to York University, and
that's where my editor went, I think.
Okay, well, get this. So at York University, your residence where you lived,
Oh, no.
was not, it was like assigned, but they were like thematic.
By major?
Sort of. And so
No.
there was one residence that was like mostly kinesiology students, and then there was one that was mostly like English majors, and there was one that was mostly like theater kids, and I was trying to decide where to go. And a friend of mine had gone to university the year before, and she said, pick Winters, because Winters is where like the art kids go and the theater kids go, and that will be, she's like, I always regretted not going there because those people seem the most interesting.
Oh, no.
So I was doing an English degree,
Was
and
it so
I was,
dramatic?
it was, people cried in the hallways constantly.
Yeah.
There was so much drama, and I remember my roommate was doing her degree in jazz, vocal jazz. And my homework was like, write a 15-page essay on, James Joyce. And she was literally clapping.
She was like,
She was clapping rhythms.
And she was scatting. She was
Scatting and clapping rhythms. They had time to have dramatic breakdowns. And I lived amongst all these theater and music school. And I got talked into auditioning for The Music Man alongside music theater majors. It was humiliating. I don't know what to do. So I feel I was not in theater school, but I feel understand. It's one of those things. It's like back, like, what do you regret about your life? I'm like, one of those. That's one of them. Yeah, it's crazy. And I'd be like, I'm trying to work on my homework. She's like, so high. And I was like, well,
Oh, gosh.
what is your favorite musical?
Oh, man. I don't want to sound like a jerk. I really love The Sound of Music. I love Billy Elliot also, but mostly because I like doing the accent when I would come home and be like, Billy! And just yell at my roommates in like a northern British accent for 2 hours, and they loved it. Yeah, they were thrilled. But I do really like The Sound of Music. I think the film is fantastic. I think it has some, as a feminist, you kind of have some issues with things sometimes, but I do really love it. And my grandmother was from Austria, so my dad was always very like, there's the Von Trapp family lodge in Vermont, and he's like, we gotta go. And we like drove down one year during like leaf peeping season and checked it out, All I remember from that is I just drank maple syrup like raw from the bottle one night. So I don't know, I feel some kind of kindred connection to it. I feel like there's tonally I find it strange because it's like this very happy musical with this like horrifying thing happen in the background. And also I've heard, people who are Jewish say, well, it sucks because it's about World War II and there's no Holocaust. Like they don't mention it at all.
They definitely mention Nazis, but yeah, there isn't a whole lot of.
So tonally I've always been like, but it is just like when you watch it, you're like, God damn, Captain Von Trapp is so dreamy.
Yeah.
And when he does his little dance.
And Julie Andrews had short hair, which I think was quite revolutionary.
And she's such a beautiful lady and she's such a good actor. If you ever see a bad production of The Sound of Music, go home and watch the movie and you're like, oh my God, she's so good. But yeah. And you know what? Like someone seduced by folk dance and you buy it, like hell yeah.
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 Well, those are the end of my questions. Should we play our game now?
Yeah, let's play our game.
Okay, so to those of you who've read the book, you know a little bit about how, do you want to introduce this?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
It's your book.
Yeah. So in the lead character, Jessamyn, she has this she's sort of flip-flopping throughout the book where she's been told she's a very talented actor. She gets cast in plays, she gets cast in commercials, but she's destined to be this musical theater star because she thinks that actors force people to revel in the truth of the human condition while stars help them transcend the mess. So she wants to be a star. And this kind of dichotomy kind of came from this podcast that I listened to where it's called Las Culturistas, and they talk about performers all the time, and they say, are they an actor? So are they like like an artiste, or are they a star? Are they somebody who kind of whisks us away? And in the book, I say, I don't want to like quote myself, but it's something like, has George Clooney ever made you feel bad about yourself when you look at him? The answer is no, right? He's like super dreamy. You like operate on
And he seems like a genuine man.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
It's not just about looks, man.
Yeah, no. But there's just, kind of some performers have this like star quality. So we thought it would be fun for folks to pitch us some of their favorite performers and we would play actor versus star. And we welcome you to disagree with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the interactive portion of the Or not, you don't have to interact.
Yeah.
Okay, first one. Timothy Chalamet,
Oh,
actor. Would he do it without the fame? That's kind of the,
I think because he's so short, and I don't want to. Like, I think he's a star because I think he's like not. You wouldn't look at him and be like, yeah, but he's doing it, right? I don't know. What do you think?
yeah, I think he's a star.
No. But I think he wants to be the best actor.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
he can't deny his star ability.
I don't know. I didn't see the Bob Dylan movie yet, so maybe not.
I saw it and was upset that I liked it as much as I did.
Well, there you go. That's star quality. I
Right?
think.
I
Yeah.
wanted to not like
Yeah.
it and I
You want to hate them and you
think
can't.
he can't. There you
Yeah.
go. All right. Jack Black.
Oh,
Oh,
Star.
Star.
yeah. He could do anything. He could make you eggs and you'd watch, right?
Yeah.
It would be funny. It would be fun.
Brad Pitt.
Star.
Star. This is
Yeah.
this is
I feel
not.
like they're all probably
Does
stars.
anyone disagree with us?
Um,
Give us your
Yeah.
reasoning, Teresa.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
You can't escape. That's a good argument.
Yeah.
I've heard some gossip about Brad Pitt that he's really stinky.
Oh, I think like metaphorically or
No, like he doesn't shower. And I think my theory is that he does it on purpose so that because people will just run up to him and be like, you know,
oh.
but if there's a smell.
Okay, well, here's a name I don't know.
Is this Joe? Is it Korean?
Vladimir Guerrero.
Oh. Is that a cyclist? No. Oh, right, yeah. I think he's a star. He just got like $100 million.
But I don't know who that is.
He's a baseball player.
Wouldn't a star mean that I would like? I know
That's
some
true.
baseball players. I know, for instance,
So
the name
maybe-
A-Rod.
Oh.
He's a star.
You're right. Maybe he's just a player,
He's just a player.
but he wants to be a star.
Does
And I know
he?
that because he has like a really big necklace.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to know something about Star? Here you go. I don't know anything about hockey, don't like hockey, don't know hockey, never really watched a hockey game in my life. Please don't take my passport. And I had a baby, and when he was born, I remember looking at him and thinking, you look just like Ty Domi.
I know who that is.
Ty Domi.
Star.
Star. And then I thought, your brother was beautiful when he was a baby, because the older brother, and I looked at my partner and I was like, the first baby was the Sidney Crosby, and the second baby is the Ty Domi. And he's like,
You need an enforcer.
yeah, maybe Freddie's the enforcer, but this is how you think. I think you're like, yeah, they were stars, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. Okay. Meredith Hambrock.
Ooh. I think actor.
Are you a star or are you a writer?
Writer. And then one of my blurbs ironically says I'm a star, but I think she was just being nice. I'm very content. I just want to do this.
You just want to do it?
Yeah.
It's difficult to know because like I am a performer,
Yeah.
and a really good at parallel parking. And do I want to be a really good parallel parker, or do I want to tell people about it? Like, am I a star parallel parker?
But like when you parallel park, people are watching.
Mhm.
You're performing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your superiority.
Yeah. I guess I don't know. It's hard to say. Do I
Yeah.
want to be really good at my craft?
Mhm.
Or do I want people to
Know
be
them.
elevated by me and love me because I make them happy? And is that bad?
Yeah. Has this changed the way you think about stand-up comedy?
No.
No.
But I do know people who I do stand-up comedy, and there are definitely people who want to skip the work and get straight to stardom.
Straight to the applause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, should we do one more and
Yeah.
then get to questions?
Let's do it.
You guys better have questions or you're just gonna have to listen to more of this. Because we have half an hour more. Florence Pugh.
Oh.
I think she's an actor.
I think she's an actor too.
I don't think she's a star.
No.
I
I mean,
think-
not yet.
I think
Yeah.
she would keep doing it whether or not she was
Yeah,
famous, and I don't think you look at her and feel good.
I mean,
Like, I don't think she brings happiness like George Clooney.
I don't think she wants you to also.
No.
Yeah, but she does have lovely cooking Instagrams if you ever need some inspiration in the kitchen.
But I think by the definition,
No.
she's not.
Yeah, I think she's happy that way.
Yeah, me too. She's there for the craft.
Yeah, yeah. That Little Women performance was great.
Yes, it was.
Let's do another one.
Oh, do another one? Oh my
Yeah, yeah,
gosh.
sorry,
she's-
just one
she's
more.
tempted. Okay. But what if it's,
I'm just curious. Well, you can discard them if you
okay,
like.
let's see. Chapel Roan.
Oh, I don't know. Star. I don't know.
I
Does
don't-
anyone have an opinion?
Would Chapel Roan, what do you guys think?
Star.
Star?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was immediate, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
She flipped her hair and they were like,
Helen Mirren.
"Oh, that is a good
What do you
one."
think?
Actor?
I think so.
Actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except she did do a Harry Potter game show once where I was like,
She needed money
"You're
for
right. Yeah, yeah.
something.
Everyone has bills."
She bought a boat and it needed repairs.
Yeah.
Her granddaughter invested in something bad.
Yeah.
Someone got Bitcoin.
Oh man, I would fall for a Helen Mirren crypto coin for sure. Don't tell her. Okay. Do we do
All right. Does anyone have any questions? I can bring a mic around if you need. Okay, I'm coming.
Hi, Mayor.
I
In your time in the theater, have you ever met anyone who like inspired the character Jessamyn? Any kind of, yeah, I guess star quality performers or people who had that kind of difficult personality?
No, I didn't. And I think I've mostly worked on like low budget Canadian things that have made it very easy. I will say the most impressed I've ever been was once I met a child actor from the Disney Channel who came to a show that I worked on, and he was probably 9 years old. And he walked up to every person on the crew and like shook their hand and introduced himself and asked you what you did. And I was like slamming muffins at the craft services table. And I was like, this kid has way better instincts than me. He's gonna go far. So no, not a lot of diva behavior in Canada. This was more fun to imagine. At least that I've seen. You know, maybe Come From Away though. I've always wondered about that cast.
Anybody else? With a question?
Hello, Meredith.
Hi.
So you've written for television
Mhm.
and you're writing a book that's about a play
Yeah.
and a musical and it's a novel, obviously. So I'm just wondering kind of curious have you thought about any of your own writing instincts as being particularly, if you tried writing for the theater or, and also like, I'm trying to think about how those things kind of play together. Like, do you think that, your writing for television had an influence on your own novel writing as well? Like how all those different types of mediums come together when you're writing a novel? Like, do you feel like you have to forget about your time as you're writing for television, or does it influence it?
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. I love working in TV because I've only ever done it as like a staff person. So a showrunner sells a show. I get hired to help them achieve their goal, I guess, of making the show. And so I'll write episodes and I'll work in the writing room, and it's very collaborative, and that's nice. But I think the thing about writing a novel is it's totally your own. And so that is something that really drew me to it as someone who's always been very ambitious and trying to kind of get my own work out in the world. And I like both. I love a TV writer's paycheck also. It's fantastic and really fun way to make money. And I did a fringe production, a theater production. I wrote and produced one for a friend of mine from university, and we toured it a little bit, and I love it. It's very artistically fulfilling, but it takes a ton of energy and commitment. And I think there's a reason that world is very insular also. Canadian theater, I think, is a very small world of people who are tremendously passionate about it. So I think that if I had an idea and I was like, this has to be a play, I would put, think about taking it on because I do love writing dialogue, but I like just sitting at home and writing, and novel writing, I think is really bad for me. But if there's anybody on YouTube who wants to give me a job, I will say yes.
Any other questions? So many. We're gonna start from the back.
Hey Meredith,
Hi, Bert.
when's the story about your time at the curling rink gonna be written?
Oh man, I love that job. It was so much fun. The other bartender was this like hilarious, kind of approaching retirement man with a glass eye named Brian, and he taught me how to make a Caesar, and it's by not making it, you let them do it themselves. Which is just like very fun to work with. I feel like that would be a good sitcom. So I don't know. Cross your fingers. Maybe we can get that going.
Where was the next one up here? There.
Hi,
Hi.
I haven't read it yet, but from what you read and what's been said, it sounds like the narrator, the main character, has a lot of dysfunctional behavior.
Yes.
And when you were writing it, did you ever feel any tension between this is what she's gonna do and it's dysfunctional? And did you ever think she shouldn't do that?
Oh
Or,
yeah. Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
it'd be a lot better if she handled this differently and so that kind of tension came up. But how do you deal with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I just cry a lot. I cried a lot. I did a lot of drafts of this book. So I wrote the first draft in like 2019, 2020, and then I took some time off and came back to it, took some time and came back to it. I'm lucky I have a wonderful literary agent who gave me some reads and some notes, and some great friends who read it and gave me some notes. And so approaching it that way with like a lot of time. Also, the time at the Saskatoon Public Library where I was writer in residence really helped because it gave me a bit of time to work on the edit. But it's really stressful writing somebody who is so different from yourself in such a bad way. And so, yeah, having to like go to the gym sometimes and just like get it out was also helpful. But I don't have any advice, I think, about dealing with that, except you just sort of have to push through, I guess.
There was one here.
Hi. So you mentioned that you were an usher, and I was just wondering if you could expand upon your inspiration for this book and how it started as a rom-com and then turned into this.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah. So I was an usher, and I had worked for a time before this on these kids' TV shows, where I was part of this very cool group of writers, and we worked on this writing style where we constantly rewrote jokes, and the actors had to, relearn their lines all the time and stuff. And then I left that and went to work at the theater. But sometimes I would see the actors and they would come in and they'd be like, "Oh my God, what are you doing here? Why are you working this job? How's the coat check?" And it was like a bit of like an ego thrashing for me, who generally, like, I'm not a very ego driven person, but it was sometimes hard to be in that mindset. And so it was kind of it was, and I was just sort of angry also about some things that had happened to me at that job. I got groped by a couple of old men in ways that made me very angry. And so there's a lot of sort of rage in the book that I wasn't expecting to come out in the book. And some sort of, raging at the patriarchy and stuff like that, which, we all feel, I think. And so all of that rage with this sort of ego stuff that was going on, coupled with my sort of fascination with actors and also empathy for actors for what they go through, all of that kind of came into this character. But when I first sat down to write it, I've always aspired to write Hallmark movies just because you can get money for them. And they're not that hard to write. And so I was like, what if it was a community theater production and this woman is, she's a really good childminder, and then the Captain Von Trapp falls in love with her. Wouldn't that be a good Hallmark movie? And then it just, totally spiraled out of control into something else. But thankfully people seem to like this version probably better than me writing that would have been. So
I think that's also good though.
thank you.
Write that one next. Anybody else?
I read the cover blurbs, and it said it was a satire. Do you see it that way?
I think at the beginning, yeah, I would say maybe a bit more tragicomic by the end, potentially, yeah. But I think it sort of starts that way and melts into something else totally different. We just like to sell books. Yeah. And also, please don't, I just hope people don't think that this is my diary. Yeah, that is what I'm very afraid of. I have like a really nice dad, and there's a bad dad in this book, and he's reading it now, and he calls me, and he's called me a few times this week to be like, oh, I'm at this chapter. I'm like, I really hope you're not mad at me.
I used to write a bunch of stories in high school, and they usually featured terrible mothers. And I have a very, very nice mother. And one day she sat me down and she's like, I would really like you to stop submitting these to the school literary magazines and for assignments and to publications because I'm concerned what people think about me. And she's like, do you have to make the mothers all terrible? And I was like, but mom, I do. I really do. And she didn't stand in my way.
It's called conflict, Mom.
Yes, I need to. Anyway, good for her for letting me do it. But I think about that now. I'm like, oh, what did I put my mother through? Yeah,
It's hard to be a mom, I think.
it is. It's really hard.
Did you have another question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask what kind of books you read that help like inspire you, I guess, or make you want to write more.
Yeah, I mean, I love the unhinged woman book trend in general. It's definitely something I've been trying to leap on for a long time. I was reading when I first started writing this book, I was reading a lot of Otessa Moshfegh, and that got me. I haven't read her newest, which I've heard it gets really quite dank and dirty. But I love Ainsley Hogarth, also, who writes these very weird, interesting, beautiful sentences, and also just tremendously unique books. But I mostly just read other fiction. I like to read what's being published. And I have a lot of friends who are more kind of contemporary thriller writers, and they write a lot of kind of page turnery stuff. And I'm always just very fascinated by how you get people to like keep reading in the TikTok era. How do we keep people excited about books? And so I keep up with those. I read this really great page turner. I had like kind of a shitty winter, and I read this book called Julie Chen is Dead that's coming out at the end of April. And I don't think I've ever been sucked into it's very kooky and like campy and over the top, but I've burned through it. I haven't had a reading experience like that in a long time. So if the state of things is very difficult to handle right now, I highly recommend that one if you just want to like escape into something.
But read She's a Lamb first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Twice even.
Twice, 3 times. First copy each time. So they buy more.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, I have to say, oh, there was one. You have a question. Okay.
Yay.
You just want to see me run. Everybody wants me to run.
Hi, Meredith. I don't know if it's really a question so much as, but just thinking about your experience watching plays over and over again and then working on TV, does that influence the way you write? Like, do you visualize the scene and then describe it, or like, how does that influence the way you write?
Yeah, that's great. I think I love great drama. I really fell in love with like some just the God, what was this play? It was called Good People. And it was just this wonderful dramatic play, and it made me really fall in love with like dramatic fundamentals. So conflict and kind of how you keep, dramatic scenes going. So that, I think, being around theater really was exciting. But also, yeah, I think I have like, some writers write with voice. Some people build out through description. I am very much, somebody who sees something in my head and put it down. This one is in the first person though, which I think is really challenging because you're really solidly rooted in somebody's perspective. It's also like a delusional character. She's not very rooted in reality. So it's sort of challenging to signal to the audience that like things are not as they seem. So that was something that was difficult to work through. But I would say the sort of visual side of screenwriting, which is very challenging medium if you ever try it, because you have to really, it's all visual. It's all what do people see, what do people hear, and how do you sort of signal to people what's going on dramatically that way. And so I find they're very different. And I would say I like fiction a bit more just because I have more control, I think. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, another one.
Hi. Has moving from Vancouver to Saskatoon like changed your writing practice or what you're inspired by and your influences?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've definitely been able to slow down a bit here. I have fewer jobs, which is really nice. I've just been lucky with my living situation and expenses and stuff to get to slow down a bit. And that is really, really lovely. I think just had a bit more time to focus on things. And also, I think write stuff that I want to write, as opposed to, I think when I was in Vancouver, I was really thinking about like what's going to sell, And I've been thinking more lately about like, what do I want to put out? So that is really, really nice. Yeah, I really like it here.
Anybody else? I knew if I waited long enough.
You mentioned having to like step away from this book a few times and come back to it. And I know that you work on other projects in parallel at your library that you spoke about working on your other novels. So how difficult is it to move between projects, like fully immerse yourself in those projects and, make progress on them when you have so many things going on?
Yeah, I think that if there are writers out here, and I know there are, I really like you have to finish the draft. That is the advice that I got when I was an emerging writer, was to finish your first draft, get it done, and then you can move on to something else and then come back. But having that just like first big chunk of writing done and celebrating and like getting a brownie or something is like really important, I think, to the whole process. So yeah, but I've definitely slowed down this last like few months because I think I burned myself out with that bopping around.
Any other questions? Oh, another.
So speaking of writing drafts, then, is your second draft a complete rewrite or is it just fancy edit? Do you call another draft?
It's really evolved over time as I've gotten to be a better writer. And I think I wish I've heard this other writer say this, and I totally agree now, is that if you have the strength to see something, say this isn't working, and throw it out, it's going to help you in the long run. I didn't do that with this book, and I feel like I got in the weeds. So my number one revision advice is to be less precious, because otherwise it just drags you out. You read it over too many times and it starts to feel very immovable, like immovable, I guess.
Okay, any other questions? Do you have a question, Meredith?
No, how are you?
I'm okay. This whole thing has made me think about an experience I had when I was a student at York University. While I was in my third year of university, the school went on strike. And it was the TAs on strike. And at the time, you had to wake up every morning and call a hotline to find out if you were still on strike.
A landline.
Landline. And there was an answering machine that would say the TAs are still striking because we couldn't cross the picket line. And so I couldn't get a job because I would apply for things and they'd be like, well, you're on strike. You can't work at this coffee shop. You're going to go back to school any day or whatever. So I became a movie extra. And I was on a lot of movie sets. And I was there for fun. I mean, I made $7 an hour. I had to pay 15% to my agent. I was certainly not doing it for money, but I was doing it for experiences. But I realize now that I met some people who wanted to be stars. There was one guy in particular. We were on the set of Urban Legends Final Cut, where we die in a plane crash. And
I didn't know we were in such illustrious company.
Yeah. And I was given the character of nerd. We were a bunch of people going on a field.
What?
And we had to bring our own clothes. Yeah. We had to bring our own clothes. And I remember I brought this outfit to wear. We were going on a spring break. We were like going to die in a plane crash on spring break. And so we were all these different stereotypes, and I was given nerd, and I brought my own clothes, and I remember the costume people getting really excited and calling all these people over. They're like, oh my God, look at her. She's perfect. And I was like, did I legitimately wear this outfit? and they also wouldn't give me hair and makeup. Everyone else got hair and makeup, but they're like, nerds don't get hair and makeup. I was like, okay.
Oh,
Anyway, there was this guy, because I spent a lot of time sitting around with the other extras, and there was this guy whose face was covered in piercings. He had like spiky black hair, and he just was like, he was covered, he was like tattoos and piercings. This was, 1999 or whatever, and so he looked cool and tough. And they came out and they said, we need someone to be a jock. And can you take out your piercings, your facial piercings, and be a jock? And we'll give you a credit. Because we'll give you a line and we'll give you a credit.
That's a big money upgrade.
And then you get to, and then you need a certain number of credits to be a member of ACTRA, and then you get paid more. And I was like, everyone around him was like, oh my God, that's the dream, that's the dream. And he refused to take out his facial piercings because he's like, this is who I am. And I want to achieve greatness with this look. And everyone's like, you don't want to do this. And so it kind of reminds me, Jessamyn, she could be an actor, but she sees a different role for herself. She's like, I know I'd be good at that, but I want to do this other thing. I have another idea of who I am. And I think about that guy. And I saw him in a commercial once. And he was fully pierced.
He didn't take him
He
out.
played a dangerous boyfriend.
Wow.
But I think that was his one and only role.
A lesson for us all.
Lesson for us all. Anyway, I think he was delusional in thinking that he could transcend the whatever. He didn't want to put in the work.
But maybe it could happen.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I wish I'd gotten it was before social media, so I don't know where any of these people are now.
Yeah, that's too bad because I would have loved it if you said I saw him in a commercial and he took them out.
No,
No,
sorry.
No, but I also love this version.
Yeah.
He stayed true to himself, and
He
that's
did.
important.
So look, okay, we've almost made it.
Hey.
Yeah, we got 5 more minutes.
Thank you.
Should we be done early?
Yeah,
5 minutes
that's
early?
great.
So what happens now? People can get signed
Yeah,
copies?
Come in and I'll sign your book, or just say hi. You don't have to buy it. It's gonna be at the library. I've also heard I think it's gonna be at the library. Probably,
I'm
right?
guaranteed
I hope so.
it will be at the library.
And I've heard the audiobook is especially good. The performer was like really going for it.
Oh, you didn't get to read it?
I couldn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I picked her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How do you pick your audiobook reader?
They send you 3 samples.
Oh, and then
Yeah.
you were like the guys in the casting, just
I know.
judging people's voices.
It's-
You were that person.
I was the monster.
Oh.
I actually said of this woman, I said, if it's not her, I want to see 3 more. And they actually said, okay. But then she said yes. And it was great.
and
I was also very polite about it. I said, please, can I see 3 more?
do they send we might make it to 8 exactly. Do they send like audio of them reading the book?
No, it's just like their other,
Oh, reading other
Stuff,
things.
yeah.
Okay.
because it's a real thing,
Yeah.
These performers, they're great.
Well, those of us who don't read physically will read audibly.
Yeah.
and
It's all
listen
reading.
to it. Yeah, it's all reading. It all counts.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know how to end this. We just say goodbye.
That's
I'm gonna
great.
turn this off.
Thank
and
you
then
very
it's
much
over.
for coming. I
Okay.
so appreciate it.
Yeah, you have that.